Welcome back, everyone, to the Stay Introverted podcast. I am your co-host, Jay Coleman.
And I'm your other co-host, Steph.
And as always, we're going to start off by just saying thank you for joining us on this podcasting journey. Ain't that right, Steph?
Ain't that right?
Or not. Maybe it's not
yeah.
right.
Wow.
I guess not. Maybe not. Just I'm thankful. Steph may not be.
No, I'm thankful. That's right.
Okay.
I went full introvert before we even started, but you know what? At least I got that moment out of the way, right?
Yep. So it's all smooth, right? It's all smooth from here on out.
It can't get any worse. Anyway, today we have a very special guest here with us. I have hung out with Jessica in person twice, so I'm very excited to hang out with her on the podcast. Jay and Jessica met briefly once, but anyway, we are very excited to have you come on and just chit chat about introverted things, or in your case, omniverted things. So why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am so excited to be here. So I'm Jessica Hwang. I am a career transition coach, and I am the host of, by the time this comes out, it'll be called Permission to Flow. So I guess I should use that name.
Okay, yeah.
Nice.
Yes, right, because my podcast is going to change over as of August. So I think by the time this comes out, well, yes. So I'm the host of Permission to Flow podcast. I'm also a yoga teacher and doing all kinds of fun things. So, I had the pleasure of meeting Steph at some podcast meetups, and it's just been super fun. And I'm so excited to be here today.
We're so excited that you're here. I guess let's just dive right into it with the name change. I mean, you and I talked about that quite a bit at the last meetup. So why don't you just kind of walk us through it? Like why the name change? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So up until August of 2024, my podcast has been called A Way of Thinking. And I will say that name has been near and dear to my heart. And it was really hard actually making this transition. But for me, my podcast is really like an evolution of me. And I don't know if you guys probably feel this as well, where it's like it grows and it morphs and you learn about yourself through the process of making your podcast. And for me, it felt like I'm moving into a new era, I feel like, of my podcast. And my podcast has very much been a lot of interviews up until now. And that's how, it started, really mainly interviews. And I'm kind of moving into the space of wanting to be able to share more about myself, about the work that I do as a career transition coach, and really bringing more of that to the table. And so it just felt like it needed kind of an evolution. And I was with some friends in London in May, and we were kind of spitballing of like, what could the name be? And we came up with Permission to Flow. And I was like, oh my God, I love it. And the thing that's so amazing about this name is it feels like it's giving myself permission to flow. And I've just been feeling so inspired. I literally recorded 3 podcast episodes, like solo episodes on Friday, like just in like one session. So it's working. And I'm like real excited about the shift.
That's awesome.
So excited for you. Wow.
Thank you.
Had you been thinking about, like, how long were you thinking about changing the name before, like, you actually started to put some thought into the new name?
It had been a few months, and I feel like it was one of those things where I'm around a lot of other podcasters and coaches, and I'd heard other people talking about changing theirs, and it kind of planted the seed. But when it first came up, I had so much resistance. I was like, absolutely not. This is not for me. I love the name of my podcast. I was so attached to it. Mm-hmm. And then over time, the seed kind of grew where I was like, okay, like, is that the right name for me moving forward? And I kind of let it kind of simmer in the background. And it was really when it came down to sitting down with my friend and us coming up with the name, because I actually helped rename her podcast as well.
Oh, wow.
So we had this fun back and forth, and it was when the name came that I was like, oh no, I think I actually have to change it because I do like that better. It just kind of developed from there.
Yeah.
How long did you have the first name for the podcast?
It's been 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 years of feeling like that was it. I thought that was going to be the name forever. So, but learning to flow with it, learning to let it evolve with me was really important.
Right. I mean, even, the name, like you said, changing the name itself was, in essence, like giving yourself permission to flow. So
exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear sort of in your own words, like, what does it mean to give yourself permission to flow, and like, how do you support your clients with that?
Yeah. So I think that so many of us, we get so caught up in we are in essence so involved in our environment where, we gain so much of who we are from our families, from our environment, from society, all these shoulds that kind of we get wrapped up in, right? There's so much there that we believe we need to be this way. We need to do things a certain way. And really what I have found is like the more that we can come home to who we are at our core, like what really works for yourself and really coming back to that essence of like our authentic selves, the more we're able to be in flow. And so for me, like what I really help people with is really that, it's really helping people tune in to who they are at their core and how to work with like what they really want to do. I really help people primarily similar to what my own journey is, moving from corporate jobs into more creative things. And to me, creativity could be anything, it's whatever really feels like it allows you to be yourself, right? Instead of masking ourselves as this like buttoned up version that we think we need to be in our workplaces and our environments. And instead just allowing ourselves to be in that flow of being who we really are. And it's like the more you're able to do that for yourself, the more it just like the world opens up to you is the way I feel about it. So that's really what I feel like my own journey has been. That's really what I help my clients with. That's what my podcast is about. And it feels like it's all coming into flow for me as well. So it's just been a fun journey.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about kind of what it is to be, a career transition coach?
Sure. Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. So what it really means to be a career transition coach is really helping people move into the things that really align with them, right? So instead of being in the career that you felt like you should be in, right? And I primarily, I work with a lot of people who are like immigrant background, which I'm a second generation. My parents are Taiwanese immigrants. And so that adds another layer, right? Of that kind of like, we were supposed to go and find good high paying jobs. And, you're supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or work in business. Otherwise you're a failure, right? And so I think that there's so many people that we have ended up in these careers that don't really suit who we are really. And it's like, but you're kind of good at it. You've decided that you're supposed to do this and it's the right thing to do. And really what I'm helping people with is being able to explore again, be able to get outside of the box of what we thought that we had to do and come back to like, well, what are the things that light you up? What are your natural gifts and talents? What if you were able to do more of that in your life and less of the things that we're supposed to do? And so it's really opening people up to that exploration and helping them find the thing that they want to do. Or sometimes the people that come to me already know deep down, they're like, oh, I like love creating art. I love, doing yoga, whatever that thing is. And it's really just opening them up to the possibility of like, what if you could do more of that? What if that could be more of the path for you instead of the thing that you've been telling yourself you need to do.
I love that. I mean, how do your parents feel about like because you said that you grew up with Taiwanese immigrant parents. So when you first started your transition out of your corporate job and moving into what you're doing now, what was their reaction?
It definitely had taken some time for them to really get their heads around it. And it's interesting because I think like my two parents had it in two different ways. Like my mom had seen like how unhappy I was. And I think for her, it was really like, I don't want this for my child. Like, I want to help you be able to get out of that space. I think my dad is a little more traditional. It definitely was really hard on him to wrap his head around this idea because I think he really loved me being in finance. Like we used to sit around like talking about numbers and stuff. So it was like a connection point for us. And so me kind of leaving that behind was very shocking. And it was tough, and it's taken them time to really, I don't think my parents completely understand what I'm doing even to this day necessarily. I said podcast to my dad the other day and he's like, I still don't get what a podcast is. I think I need to say like I'm on YouTube because my dad likes to watch YouTube,
Oh, that might help. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I need to like reframe it, but it was hilarious because he's like, I have no idea what a podcast is. I don't know what you're really doing. But yeah, and so it's definitely been it's been a shift, it's definitely, they understood, like I worked in finance, they understood what that looked like. And this has definitely been a totally different ball game.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I kind of got that same kind of reaction when I told my mother, I was not just thinking, but in the process of making plans to, start my own business and, start that journey. I'm still kind of in the transition period, I guess, of going from corporate to my business full time. But not only that, I started this business and now started a podcast with Steph. So it's like, it's coming. It's happening. I mean, so definitely had to have, that talk, why are you doing this? Are you going to quit your day job, before before everything takes off, and just really trying to, not so much justify what I'm doing, but just explain, hey, this is how I feel. I felt I thought that this was for me. But I have this other thing that's been kind of on my mind and kind of calling me for the last 2, 3, however many years. And I kind of want to see what this is about. It's not easy talking to people who raise you, because you're right. You have sort of, I guess, competing interests, I guess would be one way to kind of say it. Because you're right, Jessica, they do love you. They want what's best for you, but sometimes parents can kind of forget that they aren't the only ones who have an idea of what's best for you. I guess you've been my parent all my life, but I've been me all my life. I might know a little bit about what might be best for me,
right,
from this whole life that I've been living as myself. So it's sometimes hard having those discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said there about the fact that like you're like, oh well, but I've been me this whole time, and you've been my parent the whole time, but you haven't been me. And so it's like really grounding yourself in the fact that like you get to know you best. And it's like, yes, your parents are there, they and the thing I think that's really important to remember is like your parents are trying to keep you safe. Right. Like that's so much of, I think, of the equation is like, they want you to be safe. They want you to be, to be taken care of. And so obviously it's like when you're moving into these different pathways, it feels like, oh no, you're rocking the boat. Like you're not doing the safe thing. But at the same time, it's like grounding yourself and like, you best. And that that this is something that you really want to do for yourself, which I think that's beautiful, that you're like, okay, I'm still going to move in this path. And, you know, and it takes that bravery of going like, I'm willing to give this a shot, even when my parents may not understand, and even when other people around me may not get it, but it's worth it.
Yeah, and you're right. There is, I think, to a large degree, a generational thing. You know, just different mindsets. You know, our parents are from a different generation. Whether or not, you know, they're born in the U.S. or immigrated here, it's a different world that they grew up in versus what we kind of grew up in. You know, speaking for myself, I grew up in the 90s. Now I'm very, you know, hip hop and, you know, Bugs Bunny and Tiny Toons and MTV generation, all of that. But we kind of also grew up as technology was taking off. And then our parents didn't necessarily experience all that, or experience to the degree that we did. And it was kind of this secondary thing where we're more immersed in it. We're exposed to a lot more opportunities and possibilities. And I think that's great. So it's just trying to sort of bridge that gap, in mindsets and viewpoints can be kind of hard because, you know, they can only look at things through the lens of their experience, as we can. You know, it's hard to see things through my mom's eyes because I haven't lived it. But I sometimes our parents don't they don't, that appreciation for us isn't always there. You know, so, and I think that's very hard because it's, you know, it's, you don't want to tell your parents that they're wrong, but it's but you have to make it clear that this thing that you've been pounding in my head for however many years, just, it isn't working for me. And that's okay. But I can't stay here. I gotta do this. I gotta do this other thing, and I'm gonna take everything you taught me, and I'm gonna be safe, and I'm gonna take my time. You know, I'm gonna measure it, be as cautious as it makes sense to be. But this traditional route isn't for everybody.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. It's like, yes, I love what you said there about you don't want to tell your parents that they're wrong, because it's true.
It's so hard because they're telling you this and this, and it's like, do you see the reality? No, it's not that. It's not that.
I like to look at it as I appreciate what they did give me, right? Like, I appreciate that they did set me up with these values of having stability, of these values of having, you know, of putting me on a good path, you know. And because I think sometimes we can look at it and go, oh, I hate where I've been or something, and I really want to be over there. And to me, it's really important to kind of hold appreciation to where you are, like that corporate path or whatever that path is that you've been on, having appreciation for that and the values that were instilled in you that got you through there, because it is also helping you make that shift, right? Like for you, it's like your corporate job is supporting you as you're making this transition. And so it's not a bad thing. And so it's also like, I don't think we need to make our parents wrong, but I think we need to say, like, what you gave me is great, and I get to make a different decision now. And, you know, with the information, this other information I have and the time that we're living in and how things have shifted from when you were doing the things that I was doing, and make different decisions.
Nice. I like how you put that. Definitely.
Yeah, I love that. I think like it's okay to, you know, hold space for both. Like two things can be true at once. Like I can be grateful for everything that my parents gave me, every opportunity, every experience that I got because they pushed me in the direction that I went in. And I can also want to go in a different direction because thanks to the experience that I've gotten and the opportunities that I've gotten, I feel now confident in myself enough that I can make this next chapter work. So,
exactly.
Thanks for your support up until now. I can take it from here. I'm curious, Jess, like when your client comes to you and they're wondering how to have this conversation with their mom or their dad or their grandpa or whoever else in their life is a huge influence, like what advice do you give to them in terms of like how to get that conversation started?
So I think one of the biggest things is really grounding yourself in your own truth. And because it's easy to get rocked in these conversations, right? It's easy to have it bring up doubt or have it feel like, oh, I'm making the wrong choice. And so I think one of the most important things is really like rooting yourself and grounding yourself in remembering like and holding that confidence in like, I do know myself best. And like, and reminding yourself like my parents are just trying to support me and want me to be safe. Like remembering those elements because like at the end of the day, you don't know how they're going to react, right? And you might go in thinking they might react one way and they might react another way, but really holding true to like, what is your truth? And grounding yourself in that, I think is so important. So it doesn't throw you off and it doesn't make you question, like, is this the right decision? Like, know for yourself what you want to do first and then go in going, like, and go in knowing, like, regardless of what they say, your parent, like, remembering that your parents love you and they might not know how to show it in the right way. But at the end of the day, like they are just trying to help you, support you, even if they say terrible things, even if they go about this all the wrong way, like there is still love behind that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like what I try and remind my clients, like going into these conversations so that it's not going to like shake them to their core and throw them completely off so they can hold steady to the direction they're moving in.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. It's like, I think like just to your point there, it's so important to have that conversation with yourself first and like, remember, okay, like, why do I even want this? And when it gets hard and when your parents are saying all these crazy shit, which like you said, they might, just remembering that why, I feel like is so important. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. But also knowing that that as I like to say, at some point you have to just hello, hey doggy, whichever one was that.
They've had the zoomies this whole time, so
friends of the show. What's going on? But at some point, you have to make that leap, or as I say, you have to pull a trigger. And that can be hard in and of itself, not just having those discussions, but what if whoever it is you're having that talk with, parents, grandparents, significant others, what if they aren't, I guess, as supportive? How do you move forward? For me, it didn't matter because I'm going to move forward anyway. But how do you? I guess my question is how do you prepare your clients for that? For I guess lack of support from anyone.
Here's the thing is I think it's super important to build support around yourself. And so to me, it's like, how can you build up community of people who are, either moving in the same direction, doing something similar to you, or like also making big career changes or whatever the case may be, like creating that community for yourself and that kind of support so that if there are these, obviously we want everyone to support us, but like, if you're moving in a different direction, I think we often will hit against these kind of roadblocks where there's someone that is just not going to understand you, and that's just because you're doing something different. And so to me, it's like, before you have these conversations, start building up that network. Like make sure you have people in your life who are supporting you, who do get it. If everyone around you is in a corporate job and like is not trying to make a change, well, then it's going to be kind of hard, like moving against the grain because you feel like it's like all the fish are swimming up the river and you're or swimming downstream and you're trying to swim upstream and you're the only one trying to swim upstream. So obviously it feels like the current feels really hard. But if you have a bunch of other fish that are swimming upstream with you, it makes the journey a lot easier. So to me, it's really super important to get the support you need, whether it's from a coach or, or finding those community spaces, finding people who are doing similar things to you. Do that for yourself because it will make the journey A, more fun, and B, it'll keep you more grounded. Because it's like the days when I would go, am I doing the right thing? Am I crazy? It's like I have someone else backing me up going like, no, I love what you're doing. Keep going. And we all need that because sometimes we got to lean in to other people cheering us on. It's like, yes, you need to build in that support for yourself, but it's like surround sounding yourself with other people who can also go like, yes, I know you're moving in the right direction. I see you. I support you is so important to keep us going.
Thank you. And I'm so glad you said that because that's so true. Building that community is critical. And I think, not just community, not just our family, not just our friends, but whoever may be in a position to share our vision, share guidance, help us, just have be a sounding board. Anyone that's invested in our success or invested in supporting us. I think that's important. It's not always our so-called day one people. It might be our day two people. For me, one of my coaches told me, and this is true, a customer will become a friend quicker than a friend will become a customer. And that's been true for me because Steph is a hey Steph, how you doing? Steph has become one of my closest friends, one of my biggest supporters. A lot, she's shown me a lot more support and help than people I've known for decades. So that's true. So I'm grateful to have her as part of my community. So you're 100% correct.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I love seeing it in action.
Oh yeah, it's so fun. And one thing I was gonna say, like for introverts out there who are like, but I'm an introvert. Community, what? Scary people talking. Like community can literally start with one person. And it doesn't have to grow at any speed that's uncomfortable for anyone. So if you only feel comfortable making like one friend this year, that's one more person in your corner. Let that be enough. I think that's so important. I mean, we can get a dog too, like I have. They're my community. They support everything I do. Including barking in the middle of podcasting. But like seriously, you can start with just making one friend, one person who supports what you're doing and is like your ride or die, or at least gives you words of encouragement when you need it the most. For me, it was my friend Sam. From day one, she just was always like, yes, keep going, keep showing up on Instagram. Like, I love this. And then like my friend Bina too was also all about it. And then slowly but surely my other family and friends came along, but at the same time I was meeting one or two people at a time on the online space. And slowly I built a whole bunch of people who's had my back. Some of whom, were coaches, but many of whom were people that I just met through sharing and being honest about who I am. So it doesn't have to be this crazy, like, show up at a networking event where you know nobody and introduce yourself to 50 people.
Yeah. And also I think what's so important about this is like, this, at least to me, like part of pursuing the thing that you love is like, you probably love this thing and the other people around you also love this thing. And so like lean into that, right? Like people love to talk about commonality, right? If you're like, and you're essentially creating that by when you're doing this. So go to events where it's like you get to meet other people who are doing the fun thing that you love doing. And it's automatically giving you a space where it's like, something that you can start talking with them about. And yeah, I love your point there. It's like, start with just one person. We're not saying like you got to build like a gigantic network, but even just having one person in your corner is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. And, I said this on a previous episode, but I'll say it here again. For the folks that may not always understand your calling, don't get mad. Don't get mad if people don't understand your calling, because it was not a conference call. It's your calling.
I mean, so important. So important. Yeah. I think that there's this thing that like, as humans, we want to be understood. And I think it's challenging when we just feel like people don't understand us. And, I certainly feel like we're talking about like this podcast, Stay Introverted. Like there's so much wrapped up in that as well. Right. And it's like being able to be ourselves and the freedom around that is just so important. And so I think it's really, even if the people around you don't completely understand you, that doesn't mean that this is not the thing to pursue. And to that point, it's like, yeah, go for it and know like sometimes it will take people to come along on the journey, right? And sometimes, I hate to say it, but sometimes people will fall off and that's okay. Like we're not meant to have everyone in our lives forever. And I know that's a hard truth for a lot of people. It certainly has been for me. I want everyone to become my friend and then be my friend for the rest of my life. I'll be honest. Like that's like my jam. But I've learned like that's not entirely true. But the people that really matter, like, and the people who are meant to be on this journey with me will be on this journey with me. And, and so it's definitely being okay with being misunderstood is an important part of the journey and feeling okay about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have some people in my life who still don't get it and still like are not on. Sorry.
I want a dog right now, so I can have a dog barking in my background.
You can have them both. I literally want to throw them. In fairness to them, and then I'll go back to what I was saying. They have not been able to be outside in like 3 days because they're Frenchies and they overheat. So I'm trying not to get mad, but it's taking all of my patience. Like, Noki. Noki, come here. Hey, come here. Come to mama.
The thing is, I also want a dog. I told Steph I want me a little puppy, a little a cockapoo. But they also act just like that when they don't get enough walking. So that's kind of a fear for me, is that I'll be doing a podcast or interview and this dog is just yapping and running around, so I can't just grab it. It's just.
Right, like I'm like, how do I get him to just like come over here without like distracting?
They know what they're doing. Like they stay just far enough away where you can't get to them without looking stupid. So they're very smart in that regard.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, they're very smart at torturing us for sure. Anywho, that's what I was saying.
Tangents.
That was a good tangent. So there are people in my life who like do not understand the podcasting thing. They don't understand why I want to share things online, why it feels good for me, why I feel more comfortable sometimes expressing myself on Threads than I do in a group chat or on a phone call. They just don't get it. And you know what? That's okay. We talk about all the other things that we have in common. And when they ask about it, like I used to get really defensive and insecure when they would ask about it, feeling like, they're like almost like patronizing. But I feel like when you really love what you do and you're really passionate about what you do, it starts to become easier to either A, answer the question when they do ask and just like have a quick conversation and move on, or B, just kind of be all right with the fact that not everybody is interested in what I'm interested in, and not everybody in my life needs to be interested in every part of my life. Like, it's okay.
That is such a good point. Sometimes I think we want every person in our life to be on board with like every single facet of our life. And it's true. It's like, maybe you have some friends that you like totally get along with on this element of yourself, and like other friends who totally get this other part of you, and allowing that to be okay. And so it's like, yeah, these people might not understand you pursuing your calling or your passion or your purpose, but like they totally get you on these other levels, and holding space for that and still enjoying their company. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to talk to everyone about everything. And I think that's such a good thing to point out. And honestly, it's like, they might not be the best sounding board for that part, right? Like, you might not even want to talk to them about it anyway, because they don't get it, right? Like, they might not be the right sounding board, and that's A-okay.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
You're both right, because when I first started out, it was just definitely a shock, because you expect that, particularly your closest friends, people you talk to every day, not just to support you, but to purchase your stuff, patronize your business. So it's definitely a reality check when that doesn't happen. But you're right, you can't always expect your closest friends or your friends, people you talk with every day, to necessarily be on board, and that's fine. I've had friends that I've known for 20 years. To this day, haven't bought anything. I've had people I haven't talked to in 5 years be some of my biggest customers. I'm real big, or I'm more big on day two friends. We all have our day one friends, but I've really started to appreciate the impact and the importance of day two friends, people that kind of come along later in your life. Because to your point, Jessica, people come in and out of our lives for a variety of reasons. So if they're here now and it's supporting me now, they're definitely here for a reason, and I'm gonna rock with them.
Absolutely. I love that term, day two friends. I'm going to use that. That is so great.
It needs to be on a t-shirt. I love my day two friends.
Hey, I might get on that, because it's so important. Like, we for good reason, we give such precedence and such appreciation to the people that have been in our lives from day one. But not everyone is going to join. Not everyone wants to join us on our journey. Some people, most new businesses fail within a certain amount, early on. No one wants to be part of that failure, I guess. But it still hurts when your best friend since college or whoever, or your mom or your dad, they're supporting you from a distance. They ain't gonna put no money up. Or the type that'll tell you everything that's wrong with your business, or under the guise of just trying to help. That's hurt. It's hurtful. But those people that you meet later in life, or that customer that's been there since day one, and is always giving the feedback, and is always interacting on all of your posts, and is always just seeing how you're doing outside of business. Like, those people are just as important, if not more. And I love all of them. So yes, day two sure comes soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think I want to just remind people that things are constantly changing, right? Like, everything is temporary. And it's like, even if someone doesn't support you on day one of your business, doesn't mean that they'll never support you. And, and also it's like, we can't hold on to this expectation that everyone's going to be there right away, and so it's like allowing that to ebb and flow. And something that my yoga teacher says a lot is like, he's like, we want to hold love for everyone, but it's like, sometimes you got to hold that love and like keep them at a distance, and that's okay, but it's like, I still love you, but right now it's like, I'm in a phase where like we might need a little distance at the moment. And it's like, things might change later, but we're doing fine. And I think I like to kind of go with that notion, so it doesn't feel so harsh, where it's just like, I gotta cut everyone off and like, I can't talk to you for the rest of my life. Like, it doesn't need to be like that. Like, we can like ebb and flow, and not feel like we got to cast people out for forever.
Definitely true. Yeah, I was definitely the type of person to cast people out, so I've gotten a lot better at that.
It's a practice.
Let me be clear. It's definitely a practice. It's an acquired skill. I will say that, because I've definitely done a few. I cast the out forever, but you can't always do that.
Yeah, and you know, maybe they don't come back into your life, and that's okay too. But to me, it's like, how can we find more it's that the idea of appreciation. I'm all about just not holding that negative like hatred towards anything. Like I think it's so, I don't know, it's freeing for you yourself, like when you can forgive that person for not maybe supporting you when you thought that they would. And it's like, maybe you still need that distance from them and they're not meant to be in your life, but it's like, well, appreciating the role that they served when they were in your life.
Yeah. And also just kind of play devil's advocate. Maybe the thing that that maybe your journey just doesn't work for them, meaning that what you're selling, you may go into business selling something that they don't need. If not, a friend of mine might go into business selling wigs. I don't need a wig. I might rock one for the fun of it, but in general, I don't need a wig. So, the world doesn't need more T-shirts, but here I am selling T-shirts. So I think that kind of has to come into play also. Just because we're selling something doesn't automatically require other people, but even our closest friends and family, to buy it. If they don't need it, they don't need it, and we have to be okay with that.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I just got rid of the dogs. But I was listening the whole time. Anyway, no, I love everything that you guys are saying. And like, as you're talking, I'm almost wondering, like, what comes first? Like, giving yourself permission to flow, or like, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Giving yourself permission to flow, regardless of whether other people accept it or not, or setting up these boundaries and like having these conversations with these people. Because I'm kind of thinking, like, last year, I went through a phase where I was transitioning in my business, transitioning away from coaching, figuring out what I wanted to do next. And one of the biggest things that I did was I removed a bunch of people that were following me on my business account that were like in my actual life, like friends and family. I felt like very uncomfortable with the fact that I could see them looking at my stories. I didn't like I just always felt so uneasy every time I posted something and they would like it. And it was literally nothing about them. Like, I love my friends and family, but like, I just needed the space to be able to create without being asked about it when I was, getting drinks or getting coffee or at work or whatever. And the moment that I removed the last person, I felt like I could breathe and I could flow. And I have actually since started to allow them back in, and so I started refollowing them. I didn't even unfollow any of these people. I just removed them as followers. But I've started letting them back in, and like, I'm now at the point where it's like, I don't really care who looks, because I am being me no matter what, like, regardless of who's watching. So I don't know if before I did that, if I was already in a flow state, if I was already giving myself permission to flow, or if I needed to remove those blocks first. Maybe a little bit of both.
I think it's both, right? Yeah. I think you taking them out of your Instagram was giving yourself permission to flow. Yeah,
right.
Right? It's identifying that is something that is not allowing your flow, and you're going, okay, I'm giving myself permission to take these people off of my Instagram. And I think that's so important, is like recognizing the fact that was harming you or blocking you to some degree and making you feel a certain way, and going, okay, like I don't want this for myself. And it's perfect. You took it away and it enabled you to feel like you could share more freely. So that right there, I think it's both. I think boundaries are so important to the process, because it's like, like all the conversations we've been having around our family or, friends that might not get our journey and stuff like that. Like, so much of that is tied up in boundary setting, right? You might not have to cast someone out, but maybe you have to set boundaries. Maybe you have to be like, hey, I will still talk to you, but I can't talk about these topics right now. Like, I don't want to talk to you about my business. I don't want to hear what you think about it. I don't want to hear you telling me that something's messed up or that I, wrote something wrong. I don't want to hear it, And so it's like, and you don't necessarily have to literally tell them that you're doing this, but you can choose not to bring those subjects up. Or, if they bring it up, you go, oh yeah, things are fine, and like kind of like table it and change the subject. Like, you're allowed to do that for yourself. And so I think that's super important.
I love that. I love that you said you don't actually have to necessarily communicate what the boundary is, or like how, like, you can literally just say in your head, when I have this conversation with this person and they say this is what I'm going to do instead. Like, you can kind of create like a mental rule for yourself so that you're able to navigate that situation easily without rocking the boat.
Exactly. And so you get to choose that for yourself, and it doesn't have to create this huge amount of friction.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I do think it's both. I would probably say that the setting of boundaries is probably driven by giving yourself that permission to flow, because everything flows out of it. Like, once you've made that commitment to once you're giving yourself permission to flow, I think it puts you in the mindset of, kind of how you Jessica, you and Steph said, these are my boundaries, and this is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to do, because this is where I am now. So it's definitely a bit of both.
Absolutely. We need to protect ourselves a little bit. You got to protect your purpose, your dreams. And it's like, I think that boundaries are a big part of that, like understanding, like, surrounding yourself with that positive energy is what helps you keep going. And so it's like, if there's kind of energy suckers around you, like, it makes it so much harder to keep that momentum when it's like you're already doing something that's kind of out of the box. So the more that you can kind of like insulate and protect that for yourself, like, that's super important.
Oh my God, yes. Like, I feel like that term keeps coming up a lot, like energy suckers. So, but actually, more specifically, I was at Barnes and Noble the other day, and I saw a book called like Energy Vampires or something. And
yeah, I was thinking that.
I need to read that because I feel like I've removed most of them from my life, but I want to like be able to identify the ones that like I don't even notice.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess as we start to sort of wrap up, like, what are some final thoughts, final pieces of wisdom that you have for people in our community that are in a creative space or thinking about entering a creative space or thinking about leaving their corporate job? Like, what are some things to think about as they make that transition or decide whether that's right for them?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came up to my mind as you were saying that was like, there's nothing wrong with you if you're thinking about doing this. And, I think people think that there's something strange when they're like going against the grain because everyone else is moving in one direction and I'm trying to go in another. And I think that there's something actually really beautiful about that, right? Of being able to go like, oh, like I feel this pull. And it's like, what if you followed that? What if, and it's like, it doesn't have to be you quitting your job tomorrow and starting off on this new path. It's like, you can just start to build something on the side, start to make that space for yourself, start to really tune into what feels good for you. And, to me, it's so much comes down to being true to yourself and being true to like who you really are. It's like we don't have to. I feel like we've been living in this world where everyone's walking around with a mask and trying to be someone they're not, you know, and that breaks my heart, because it's like, and I remember doing that. I think I spent so much of my life doing that and trying to show up as this version of me that I thought everyone else wanted me to be. And it's like, you know, we can just slowly start to allow ourselves to be who we are, be the introvert you are, be whoever it is that you need to, that you really are. And that gets to, I don't know, it just brings so much more life to you. Be your introverted self, like stay true to that. If that feels right for you, it's like, yeah, take that time, recharge your batteries, like get to, you know, see the beauty of the things that make you different. Because I think we spend, you know, like growing up, we all try and be just like everyone else. I think that's so ingrained when you're like a teenager, especially. And to me, it's like our differences are what makes us beautiful. And the more that you can look at your differences and see that they make you beautiful and unique and they are important, I think that's what I want everyone to take away.
Well,
I love that. Oh, that's beautiful. Be a Fruit Loop in a world of Cheerios.
I love that. I love that so much.
Back in the days of MySpace, that was like my bio.
That is amazing. I'm obsessed.
And just like that, we have the title for this episode.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yes.
T-shirt also.
I want that T-shirt.
As I always say, right? These are not episodes; just our staff meetings. So
yeah,
do a little recording, a little business episode title.
I love it.
And like, do you get tons of T-shirt ideas from these podcast episodes?
He can't keep up. Like we're having a hard time with a full list.
I have an entire file in my phone just for T-shirt ideas, not just for my business, but I had to make one for the podcast. So I've also taken on the job of recording these things because Steph has great ideas, but they don't. The
memory of a
goldfish. Like that part we got to work on. So I record them here so that you can come back to them later once we get everything up and running. You may, hey Steph, remember that awesome idea? No, well here we go. So yes, I like the be your Fruit Loop in the world of Cheerios. Merch coming soon, folks.
Oh yeah.
I'm your first order right here. I want that shirt.
Amy get a sale. Look at that sales meeting, podcast.
I love
podcast meeting sales call. Listen,
it's an introverted hack.
It is, do it all at once. Get out the way.
I love it.
I love it.
So Jess, before we have you like plug yourself really quick, tell the people where to find you, I just want to say thank you so much for not just coming on today, but being patient with my psychotic dog losing his mind the second we hit record. So thank you. You too, Jess. Thanks for that. Constantly deal with them, so I appreciate it. And also just thank you for like supporting the podcast, like coming to our events. Like you're awesome, and I know that we're definitely going to hang out again in the next couple of months. Yeah, and with that, where can everybody find you? What do you got going on? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for co-hosting the podcast meetups. They've been amazing. It was so nice connecting with other podcasters because I didn't feel like I had enough of that in my life. So thank you for holding that space for us. And I'm happy to be interrupted by dogs. I think it's hilarious. So all good. Yeah, so you can find me on my website is jessicahwangcoaching.com. You can listen to my podcast, which by the time this comes out will be called Permission to Flow. I'm also on Instagram, Jessica Hwang Coaching. Yeah, so let's see. I'm like, oh, the thing I'm running is ending by the time this comes out. So, but yes, main thing is you can book a free sales call with me, on my website, but, and I would be so happy in helping anyone in their career transition.
Awesome.
Oh, I love that. And one thing I do want to point out too is when we talked about community, I meant to mention this. You had an episode on your podcast that really stuck with me, and I brought this up to you before. You did an episode about community, and it just like so full of resources, like so many great ways to like make community. So we'll definitely link that in the show notes as well, because I listened to that episode 6 months ago and I'm still talking about it. So I think everybody should listen. But anyway, this was Jessica Hwang. Did I say that correctly? I always mess up.
You're good.
This was Jessica, and this was the Stay Introverted podcast. So if you love this episode, be sure to rate it, review it, share it. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube, TikTok. We just started on both the platforms, so give us your support. Stay introverted.
Y'all.
Amazing. Thank you so much.